Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's class. Today, we're going to talk about consulting skill set analysis. So, just like before, the first agenda item would be discussing the purpose of this analysis stage. Then we'll basically cover the key aspects. So let's get started. So there are a number of objectives or purpose for this analysis stage. Basically, at this stage, once you figure which direction the discovery stage you want to head it, then this is when you want to collect additional information. So depending on what approach you want to take during that you decided in the discovery stage, you can adopt either problem-focused approach. So if you decide to do problem-focused approach, what you have to do is to identify what is the presenting problem. Oftentimes, what's being presented by your clients may not be the true cause or true problem areas. There could be multiple layers, so you need to see whether there are additional uh, issues that could be discovered. So you want to ask what are some others are doing to create these problems, because oftentimes when clients raise these issues, usually these issues will be caused by other stakeholders in the organization. On a very rare occasion, you may ask what the clients is doing to create or sustain such problems. All right. So this problem-focused approach basically help you to focus on the source of potential factor that will influence the problems. And that's the type of information you will need to have together during the analysis stage. Second major objective is to assess the organizational climate. So basically, you want to gain a better understanding of what the organization culture may look like. Are people collaborative, and what type of uh, working culture they may have? That could further pinpoint what problem area they may emerge. Oh, and before we forgot, if you choose to focus on the strength-based approach in your consulting project, then instead of asking what is wrong or what is the presenting problem and the corresponding cost, what you need to focus on instead in this approach is to focus on what has been doing well and also looking at potential emerging trends the company may be able to further capture and identify, right? So those are two very different approaches. In this stage, also it offer you an opportunity to think about whether you observe any client's resistance to the your style, to the type of data that you plan to gather, or even the type of solution you may recommend. Oftentimes, resistance is very typical because as whenever you raise your recommendations, initially people often may not fully buy into your solutions. So you just need to state that you actually observe this resistance and then wait for clients' reaction, and that will allow you to better figure out what would be the next steps, how you can deal with such resistance. All right. So it's better to deal with this resistance instead of simply letting go or ignore potential issues. Because in the long run, by dealing with this resistance or heads on, it will allow you to attenuate any potential negative impacts of this resistance. And at this time, you will also have the opportunity to choose the appropriate discovery process and figuring out what type of methodology you want to collect information. And furthermore, It's also important to understand what type of methodology you will need to do for this discovery analysis process, because different type of methodology will determine the type of data you will that would be available for you to analyze. It will further dictate your analytical approaches, right? So that's why it's considered a very important objective for this stage. And ultimately, all these data analysis, data you have gathered and analyzed, allow you to reduce all this information into manageable issues. It also allow you to get a better sense of what potential action choice are available for you to take. So this discovery analysis stage is actually quite important. So let's talk about quickly on the recommended steps or on the highlighted step presented in the textbook. Overall, there are 14 steps, and we're only going to cover the first 8 or 9 steps, and the remaining will be covered in next week's lecture. Right? So let's get started. So initially, at the very beginning stage in the consulting project, this would allow you to better determine whether how you want to proceed, right? So after the contracting stage and during the discovery stage, where you have determined what approach you want to take on for this consulting project, you will have more information and more opportunity to reevaluate whether what's the best way to proceed. Maybe after the initial contract stage and the discovery stage, then you realize perhaps it's better to focus on the opportunities than to focus on the problematic areas. Then this is when you need to further determine whether that would be the case or not. All right. Once you have identified the proper approach to proceed, then you need to focus on the corresponding methods in order to collect information and analyze these relevant information. So that's to identify whether you want to focus on the problem or whether you want to focus on the emerging opportunities. And clients always often will present you what they desire, but you always need to dig deeper to figure out whether what they desire or what they want from or the type of solution would be best fitted for their situation. If not, maybe perhaps this would be a good time to bring up this difference in opinions and have a more active discussion with your clients. And step 3 involve identify the presenting problems and basically or emerging opportunities by digging deeper and figuring out additional layers of problems. Oftentimes, the presenting problem that client mentioned may not represent or nor capture the true underlying issues. So it would be helpful if you have additional information, not only about what the problem is, but also about the potential individual who may cause these issues. And then you will be able to conduct follow-up interview or follow-up analysis to figure out what could work better. And step 4 is basically decide who will be involved in the data collection analysis process, whether this would be implemented internally or whether there would be external stakeholder involved, additional survey company, for example, in the data collection analysis steps. The benefit of doing internal project or internal data collection analysis effort is that oftentimes those individuals from an organization will be able to provide you a more relevant information. Yet sometimes this information may be somehow biased because of their prior experience or their uh, their affiliation with different departments. External stakeholders may be more objective, but they also come with their own bias based on their prior experience as well. And however, will they do provide whenever they present their recommendations, their recommendation tend to receive less resistance because people will feel that their analysis or recommendation would be more objective. And also when doing this type of determine who will be involved, you also need to think about what level of organization will need to get involved as well. Different level of organization will provide different type of information. For example, in human resource management, they often highlight the importance of doing 360-degree of feedbacks. Not only you want to ask feedback for the supervisors who will be able to evaluate performance-based specifically measures, you also want the co-worker to involve in evaluate organizational citizenship type of behavior, whether those individuals are being helpful or not. You often will want to involve the customer, and users as a as well, because those individuals will be able to provide the most accurate information on whether customers have been well taken care of, right? So that simply means that oftentimes when you collect information, if you are able to collect these information from a variety of sources, you will be able to capture a more comprehensive picture of what's going on. At the same time, you also want to determine how many participants will be involved for each of these levels. Because let's face it, it's very costly to gather information from these different individuals. And if you don't do it correctly, and if you oversample or undersample these individuals, you will either err for too much information and waste of resource, or err for uh, not having sufficient information, right? So those are important questions for you to determine when you collect and analyze information. You also need to think about what dimension you want to examine. And that really would depend on your topics and your expertise. And remember in lecture 2, when we talk about focus framework from ex-McKinsey consultants, the issue trees often will provide a wonderful tool for you to understand what dimensions of information you need to further gather. So be sure to review lecture 2 as well. Then the next stage is figuring out what type of methods you want to use to collect information. Again, it depends on the scope and purpose of your project, but overall, there are two categories of information gathered. Right, one of them is primary data collection methods, and those typically involve you gather first-hand information by yourself. This can be done via various methods, such as interview, observation, survey, field studies, or simply analyze the pre-existing documents. The interviews is fairly straightforward. However, to conduct a good interview, you want to be sure the interview process is a structured one. Oftentimes, structured interview versus unstructured interview, the The structured ones will allow you to gather consistent information than the unstructured one. Simply because in structured interview process, you will have uh, pre-identified items that will help you to capture important information across various issues or across various dimensions, right? In unstructured interview, that's really not the case. Sometimes people feel they can just go in to the interview and go and ask random questions, but that's really not an effective way to do so. So whenever if you choose to adopt interview strategy, making sure that you specify the items and standardize the questions you want to ask. You always want to ask different individual the same set of questions early on. And toward the end, you may ask open-ended questions, such as asking them to provide additional dimensions or additional information that will help you to better understand the existing issues. All right, so let's interview. Second primary approach is observation. So basically, what you will have can do is simply observe what's going on in day-to-day operations. So in the typical job analysis from human resource management, oftentimes they would do exactly this type of job. So in this type of job analysis, what people will usually do is simply observe what's going on, and in greater detail, they will keep a diary and recording exactly what happened for very type of tests. And this type of observation methods of data collection can be very time consuming, so I wouldn't recommend that approach. Uh, uh, Another data collection method is survey research. So survey research usually involve the collection of people's attitude or opinions. Usually what you could do is you could come up with questionnaire items and using Likert skills in order to identify people's attitude or opinion toward particular issues. And if these type of survey question is designed accurately uh, or designed professionally, the information you get actually can be very useful. And with large enough sample, you can actually detect underlying relationship between this issue, any type, various type of issues, and performance outcomes. So that's actually if you have the resource and if there are large number of individuals, then that could be a preferred method of operation. And there are also additional field study, which involve collecting company-related information, which can be consumer interactions or any type of operation process. If you are able to quantify these issues, you may be able to make test the relationship with this issue and performance outcomes. And finally, uh, document analysis. This can be done especially with nowadays world. There are actually a lot of information individual working in a particular company will constantly produce. Think of the various documents or various information being produced and prepared by company employees, right? And there are all actually computational methods where you can do topic modeling, content analysis, or even natural language processing in order to identify emerging trends or emerging concerns that you may be able to detect within the organization, right? So these are some of the important methodology you can use to collect and analyze information. And sure, from some of your research method course or marketing or management or even operation uh, course, you probably have learned various aspect of these uh, uh, methods. So however you feel comfortable with, you should adopt that particular approach for your project. There are also secondary data collection method where you get information from external stakeholders, and there could be trade magazines that will provide, for example, provide some kind of trend analysis or market analysis, and you can incorporate this into your uh, analysis steps and utilize them to help you to identify whether there are emerging opportunity in the external environment or whether they could be a best practice out there that existing company can follow. So it really depends on the type of question and type of the purpose of the project and your expertise. You will determine what type of methods you could use to for collecting data and analyzing information. Then step 7 is simply go ahead and analyze this information, collect and analyze this information. And this is an example of what you can do for discovery interview. So this is available on the from the from your textbook. Basically, it highlight key aspect of the discovery interview. And this type of interview allow you to better discover the important issues within the organization that you are interested in your consulting project. First one is that ask question is basically allow you to learn more about the organizations, and each meeting should really serve as opportunities for you to understand the key issues and detect whether there are any resistance they may have on your approach or the kind of recommendation or action steps you recommended. And these responses often will provide helpful information for you to determine the next steps. It will also help you figure out what would be the best way to design implement this research project, right? So overall, it allow you to gauge the interest out there about this project, and also whether help you to detect whether the client would be defensive or not. And you also will be able to understand more, dig deeper about what the clients would be interested to learn about. And most importantly, is the third component, right? So remember when we talk about the presenting problem that clients have initially presented or shared? Well, there are actually multiple layers, right? The basic layer is the one that what the information that the business or technical problem that client presented. However, there are additional layer of the cost of these issues. There's others may act in a way to either causing more problems or somehow help the clients attenuate these potential issues. So you need to know who the other stakeholders are and how they are actually influence such problem areas. And third layer is basically help you to better understand the client's own behavior as well. So how they are responding to all these problem area from others, and whether they will have additional resource to help them to better deal with this. So this exercise will help you to gain a better insight um, the issue and figure out what would be the proper recommendation for it. And yeah, additional items you can take a closer look, uh, and the remaining highlight the number of data or what additional data you may be able to gather from the clients. So use this uh, exercise as a way to help you to collect additional information in future meeting with the clients, right? And these slides just simply present additional steps they are involved in the analysis process. Basically, at least step 8 to step 14, basically involved with how you will analyze the information, summarize the what you have learned, and then come up with recommendations. Right? We won't go into detail today because we are going to cover these next week. Another thing I would like you to pay close attention to is now is a good time to review lecture 2. In lecture 2, we have talked about uh, the another book, right? The McKinsey Engagement, a powerful toolkit for more efficient and effective team problem solving. So this book also is a good one I would recommend. It not only highlight important framework for you to deal with team consulting team related issue. Most importantly, it present the analytical frameworks that many McKinsey consultants have been using, the so-called focus framework: frame, organize, collect, understand, and synthesize. Right. So be sure to watch lecture 2 again. And if you are interested, I will recommend you to read this book as well. All right, it help you to get better understanding. And also, two tools that I want to highlight from chapter 2 would be the following. Uh, Make sure you pay close attention to each issue tree. All right, so issue tree basically is a logical way for you to list out all the potential cost of your problems, right? So basically, you provide it, but this issue trees, actually, if used effectively, will allow, especially if you are doing problem-focused consulting project, this type of issue trees will allow you to develop a more systematic understanding of what will be your hypothesized cost of these problems, right? Be sure to check out this lecture and also use the above mentioned uh, link to learn more about issue trees. Another important tool set I will highly recommend is to get a better understanding of process maps, right? So be sure in when you review on lecture 2, pay close attention to the second half of that lecture, right? And that will help you to better understand additional framework that you could use for you in the analysis process, right? That's it for this week. Thanks so much.